A modern update to a 50-year-old beloved property. I'm sure this is gonna go over great. Scoob is the modern update to the beloved cartoon franchise that started more than 50 years ago now. We start the movie by seeing how Scooby-Doo, Shaggy, and the gang all met up as kids. And this part of the movie I actually really did enjoy. Now this is only about the first 10 or 15 minutes of the movie, so it's not like it encompasses a great deal of screen time. But it did start out strong. I did like seeing these well-known characters in a new light and how they all met. And then we fast forward an undetermined amount of years later to when they're all adults in the form that we typically see them. And this is when the problems begin. You see, the movie to this point was on a nice ride upwards. We were enjoying this subtle incline. I was having a good time. Wasn't the greatest experience I've had, but I was enjoying my time with the movie more or less. And then we get to the part where they become adults and the movie just kind of plateaus and goes on. And it doesn't really ever come up from there. Now, I mean, granted, I guess it doesn't really go down either, but it doesn't do anything else. After you've seen that first few minutes, it doesn't really have anywhere else to go. Well, from like an investment and quality standpoint, it doesn't really have anywhere else to go. The movie does have more to do, but it doesn't really have a whole lot to do with Scooby-Doo. It's a lot of do's. Shortly after getting to present day, the movie presents us with more characters that we're not used to seeing in the Scooby-Doo universe. Mainly that's some other Hanna-Barbera characters in the form of Blue Falcon and Friends. And this is when the movie shifts drastically from just a new Scooby-Doo movie to a Blue Falcon movie featuring Scooby-Doo. And the rest of the movie, it seems like, is setting up this Hanna-Barbera universe, which is fine. I mean, I'm cool with a Hanna-Barbera animated universe. I mean, they had it way back in the day when I was a kid. I mean, not way back in the day, but you know, when I was a kid. And there's tons of other animated universes out there. I don't mind a Hanna-Barbera animated universe. In fact, with their back catalog of characters, I think that it could be kind of neat to revive some of those characters into a more modern animated universe. But was the Scooby-Doo movie really the place you wanted to introduce all of them? I mean, this is billed as a Scooby-Doo movie, but like I said, as it stands, it seems like it's a Blue Falcon movie featuring the cast of Scooby-Doo. If they wanted to create this Hanna-Barbera universe, fine. Do that. Do it more like the Lego movie did it. Feature all these characters, but have focus. Scoob can't figure out who it wants to focus on. Scooby and Shaggy, or Blue Falcon and Friends. And that's not to mention the rest of the Scooby gang, because I mean, yeah, they're here, but they don't really do much. This just doesn't seem like a Scooby-Doo movie. There's not really a big mystery in the traditional Scooby-Doo sense. And I know it's a modern update to that show, but that's just part of what Scooby-Doo is. And while they do shoehorn some of that into this movie, it never really feels like Scooby-Doo. Also, concerning the Hanna-Barbera characters, while I do think that it would be neat to see these characters portrayed in a modern way, and I did love seeing Captain Caveman on screen again, and that reference to Jabba Jaws and more at the end of the movie, I remember all those characters from when I was a kid. I don't know if this movie's target audience is gonna know who the hell these characters are. That's not to say that you couldn't build them up, bring them back and introduce them to a new generation, but that's not what this movie does. It just throws them in there like you should know who they are. And make no mistake, this movie is totally directed at kids. And while I knew who these characters were, I don't think kids nowadays are gonna. Speaking of those kids that this movie is targeted at, I don't really think this movie is gonna hold their attention all the way through. While I do think that younger kids could find some entertainment and enjoyment out of this movie, I don't think this is gonna be their next big movie. I don't think any of you have to worry about this being the one that's on repeat in your house for the next few months to come. The 6-year-old I watched this movie with really wasn't interested in the movie for the vast majority of its runtime. You could tell that she liked certain parts and it was okay, but she's not ever gonna ask to watch this one again. Which tells me that while this is targeted at kids, they're not really gonna find much to latch onto with it. So how about the Scooby-Doo faithful? Maybe this movie's for them. Well, no, not really, because like I said, this is a modern update of the Scooby-Doo that we all know and love. And while there are still certain aspects of these characters that are the same as they were back in the 70s and 80s, things have changed quite a bit with this rendition. The humor here is cute at best, and it does seem like they try to update these characters. The problem is, it seems like they try to update these characters 10 years ago. A ton of the humor and just the sensibilities of this movie don't seem like they're from today. They also don't seem like they're from when the show originally aired. It seems like it was written like 10 years ago, but they just now made it. I mean, there's like Simon Cowell jokes, there's people dabbing, and there's just all these references that were relevant 10 years ago. And that really dates the movie. Now I'm talking about dating something that originally aired in 1969. But really, I think if they had just stuck with that time period, it wouldn't have seemed as dated. It would have just seemed more novel. Basing all your humor off of 10-year-old gags just makes it seem extremely dated and makes it difficult to find the laughs. In the voice acting department, we got a whole lot of big names. Will Forte, Mark Wahlberg, Jason Isaacs, Amanda Seyfried, Zac Efron, and more. And while none of the voice performances are bad, I was expecting a bit more with such a big name cast. I mean, everybody does fine, but with this many big names, I was just expecting a bit more, and it just came off as kind of a waste. Frank Welker, who's been doing work on Scooby-Doo since its inception in 1969, returns here as Scooby-Doo. And the guy does do a good job as Scooby-Doo, but I mean, that's kind of expected. He's been doing this a real long time. Guys, Scoob is a bit of a disappointment. Or it would have been had I been looking forward to it to begin with. Admittedly, I am not the biggest Scooby-Doo fan on earth. I am a fan, however, of good movies. And while this movie wasn't terrible, it was nothing to really write home about either. The story, while it does start out strong, evolves into pretty much an opening for a new Hanna-Barbera universe. And overall is just kinda weak. The humor is extremely dated, and the movie just doesn't really appeal to its target audience or lovers of the original series. So I don't really know who this movie's for. Like I said, some young children may find some enjoyment in a viewing. And while I can't recommend the movie to anybody else, if you have young children in the home that do show an interest in this movie, at best, I would stream it. It's kind of a shame when it comes to this movie because this is one of the few meant to be theatrical releases that we've gotten in a while. And while I do like the idea of possibly reintroducing us to these Hanna-Barbera characters of old, this just wasn't the way to execute that plan. So there it is, guys, my review of Scoob. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Venice Beach.
We're in IKEA. The Falcon Fury. Did you say IKEA? Nope, I said Falcon Fury, just like you.
While this movie didn't really resonate with me, there was one part that I did absolutely love. Well, two parts. I did like seeing the reference to Jabba Jaws in the end, but that was only really quick. It was only a reference. And while I know a lot of my viewers probably have absolutely no idea who this is, what I loved seeing was my man, Captain Caveman, on screen again, saying his signature line, Captain Caveman! It was so great. It was a simpler time, okay? So great. Zoinks!